What it do, homies? It's your boy Dave, and I'm back today. It's been a minute since I've done some Yarnhub, so we're about to check out the Centurion commander, and I hope I'm pronouncing that right, that destroyed over 20 tanks. Let's get it.
Back in northern Israel, Zvi arrives at the forward operating military base of Nafar a mere hour later. It's a chaotic scene. Injured soldiers arrive by the truckload from the fierce fighting taking place just kilometers away. At the same time, reservists like himself pour into the base from the surrounding communities. Zvi helps the overstretched medics deal with the injured. Meanwhile, amidst the chaos, a group of mechanics works around the clock, repairing 4 modified Centurion tanks. Deputy Brigade Commander David Israeli is desperate to field as many units as possible to stop the advance of the United Arab Republic. In his haste, he summons Zvi and orders him to get himself a crew to man whichever tanks are successfully repaired. It takes the mechanics until evening, but 2 of the 4 Centurions are successfully brought to operating conditions. Lieutenant Zvi Greengold immediately takes them over with a varied crew of unitless tankers, and Zvika Force rolls out into battle. They drive for 4 kilometers until they find their first targets. Under the red Israeli sunset, they spot a 4-tank group of Syrian T-55s advancing on their own. Zvi orders the Centurions to peek over the hills and fire. With a boom, the Israelis fire their first rounds on that fateful day.
They took down 2.
The shells streak straight into the T-55s.
Hey, one question. When it comes to these tanks, now, obviously, I know that they're kind of designed to take heavy fire, right? And I would think that, you would think that a tank's going to go up against another tank. So you would build your tank with anti-tank kind of materials, because then by default, it'll also throw off it'll also shrug off gun bullets and stuff like that. So I've always wondered that. But I guess, no amount of defense can, stop a full round coming straight for you.
Punching right through their armor. In the blink of an eye, half of the enemy force goes up in flames. The 2 Centurions reverse back into cover, the enemies never seeing them. A triumphant Zvi takes the radio to coordinate his next move, but he finds it dead. He curses his luck. He can't fight without good communications. Out of options, he crawls out of his war machine and runs over to his partner. He explains the situation and orders the commander to return the radio-less tank back to base. Zvi will stay on to fight. Zvi keeps a watchful eye upon his surroundings. The evening has turned to night, and a gentle wind provides little respite from their desert heat. It's deathly quiet, not even the buzz of insects daring to pierce the brutal silence. That is, until the distant rumble of engines and tracks reaches Zvi's ears.
Well, that's kind of that's scary. By yourself, or he's with somebody.
It doesn't take them long to spot their prey, but they aren't prepared for what they see. Streaming across the desert is an awesome sight. It's a 30-tank convoy of the Syrian 51st Independent Tank Brigade, headed straight for their position.
30.
It's a nightmare scenario. 1 tank against 30, but even this vastly outnumbered doesn't deter the plucky tank crew.
Balls of absolute steel. I'm telling you, I'm just shocked that there's 30 tanks and I ain't even there. And they it ain't nothing.
Zvi orders his driver into an ambush position behind a hill a few meters off the side of the road. The gunner keeps the Centurion aiming straight at the road as the column slowly and deliberately rolls their way. The T-55 drives into the Centurion's sights and Zvi shouts, "Fire!" The gunner fires from point-blank range and the enemy vehicle violently detonates, sending the turret sky high. The column is stopped, dead in its tracks. The Syrians panic. They can't see their enemy. In their desperation, they turn on their searchlights, but all it does is make Zvi's targets shine brightly.
So so this is something that we've seen time and time again, right? When your numbers are outnumbered, right? It may seem like you have the disadvantage, but really it's just one of you versus 30 of them, right? So he's using the elements of surprise. That was very smart That's very smart. And what makes this even more impressive is that he's doing this with a tank. Okay. Now I don't know about the mobility of this certain tank and everything, but he's doing it with a tank. That's what's crazy. It's not like he's out here ninjaing his way across the battlefield. We're talking tons of steel that he's strategically moving throughout the battlefield. That's crazy.
Against the black desert backdrop, the Centurion picks off its prey one by one, Zvi leading his crew with the patience of a hunter and the gunner firing with the precision of a sniper. The Syrians don't see a thing as one by one their vehicles are turned into scrap before their eyes. The column panics, convinced they've wandered into an ambush of a larger force. They swiftly retreat without ever firing a single shot, leaving behind at least 6 burning wrecks. But the battle isn't yet over. Shortly afterwards, a 10-tank force led
My
by
goodness.
Lieutenant Colonel Odysee Moore arrives at their location.
Their resources
The
are
colonel
plentiful.
is shocked and surprised to discover that the Zvika force is just a single tank. Zvi hadn't informed him for fear of revealing his weakness to the enemy. Regardless, Zvi joins him just as the units receive an emergency transmission from Nafar base. An enemy battalion is about to fall upon them.
Ooh, that's a lot of
Nafar
tanks.
is defended by reservists, a handful of anti-tank units, and staff manning the defensive fortifications.
The anti-tank. Okay.
Against them is an overwhelming force, an entire battalion fully equipped with tanks, infantry, and artillery. When Z finally arrives, a desperate battle is already raging. The concrete walls are full of holes, and explosions tear through the defensive fortifications.
Their animations, Yarnhub, is it the people who do their animations, or if it isn't them themselves, it's get better and better. Like I know they partner, they had the sponsor here, what was it called, World of Tanks or whatnot. This is enough to get you interested, right? These hokey pieces of metal is going to raining absolute destruction. I mean, honestly, even though this is a animation, I don't think in any type of movie I've ever seen this many tanks at once. That's scary.
The Israeli tanks quickly join in the fray. In near unison, the line of battle tanks unleashes its firepower upon the invaders. But the Syrians respond in kind. The Israelis are fighting valiantly, but can't do anything about the enemy's raw numbers. Many get wounded, including Zvi. Lieutenant Colonel David Israeli does his best organizing his rapidly diminishing force until a T-62 takes aim at his vehicle and fires. The colonel's radio transmission abruptly cuts off. His Centurion is burning upon the rolling hills of the Golan Heights. Brigade Commander Yitzhak Ben Shaham takes command of the force and attempts to continue the attack, but he too is tragically silenced not long after.
Dang.
Amidst it all, Zvi continues to push on to the besieged base. The gunner hits target after target until they get into cover to reload.
That gunner, if that's the
Zvi
same
takes
gunner,
his radio and calls to his fellow
Amazing.
tankers to reinforce him.
accuracy
Nobody
crazy.
answers. Concerned, he glances at the radio and tries again, but to the same result. It quickly hits him. There's nothing wrong with the radio. There are just no tankers left.
Oh, I thought maybe they were jamming the signal.
Unfazed, he instantly returns to his job. They keep up the defense alone, maneuvering between the ruins of the base. They load, fire, load, fire, load, fire.
See, I think what's even so V, right? So he's obviously commanding, right? He's a commander and everything. And him not leaving his post is absolutely super amazing, right? But I also want to give shout out to the guy that's shooting. Now, I do know that it requires careful aiming. And I don't know, I speculate. It requires careful aiming when you're shooting something out of a tank, right? Because you got to factor in a lot of things. I don't know how much wind plays a factor considering how heavy the ammunition they're shooting, right? You might be able to pierce through that wind resistance, especially if you're firing at, short distances. But the fact that he's able to be at pinpoint, isn't that like super amazing when it comes to tanks, right? Like that's insane. And one of the things I believe that's making it so successful is that it's not taking him multiple shots. It's taking him one shot and it's going one shot. That efficiency is what's super impressive here.
The men are working off pure instinct, fearlessly fighting back and making the Syrians pay dearly for each and every single step forward. An unknown witness to the defense reported back to Israeli headquarters. There's no one in camp except a single tank, fighting like mad. The enemy assault grinds to a halt under heavy casualties, and the Syrians resort to artillery to take out the last of the defenders.
Oh.
Heavy bombardments fall upon what's left of Nafar base. The shockwaves of the explosions rattle Zvi, but his resolve remains unmoved. Him and his crew are determined to stay and fight. But then, a message comes through the radio. The military base of Alikwa calls for aid.
Oh, they made it out.
Upon his arrival to Alikwa, he is relieved to discover it was just a false alarm.
Oh.
Out of danger, the adrenaline wears off, and the physical and mental exhaustion crashes upon Zvi.
Yeah.
He climbs out of his war machine and collapses onto the floor, the tears beginning to stream down his cheeks. He declares, "I can't do this anymore." Major Moshe Zurich, the new commander of the 188th Brigade after the loss of Yitzhak, orders Zvi to be carried to the field hospital. Zvi Greengold has spent almost 30 consecutive hours in a tank, during which he's known to have destroyed at least 20 Syrian machines. His superiors believe the true number to be closer to 40, and higher estimates put it closer to 60. He would spend a few days in the hospital before rejoining his brigade in battle. He received the highest military award for his incredible actions on that fateful day, the Israeli Medal of Valor, and was one of only 8 Yom Kippur war veterans to receive it. Zvi survived the war and went on to become a successful businessman and a local politician.
I was hoping he survived.
He remains humble about his feats, stating, "There are men alive and dead who did wonderful things we don't even know about. The men on the line did exceptional things, and I pale by comparison." Zvi is still alive today. Please help the channel and down.
Is he? Hold on, let me find out how to spell his name. Zvi. Zvi Green. He is still alive? Oh, that's awesome. Oh, here he goes. He's 70 years old. Wow, look, guys, we got an image. Wow. Wow. You know what? This type of story, I would love to go and talk to this guy, right? And just kind of, 30 hours in a tank, I would imagine you hopping out of the tank, you're mental, you're just gone, you crash, death literally could find you at any minute, and here you are, 60. That's insane. That's insane. Bro. What they said there at the end, where he said there were so many heroes who've done acts that we don't even know about, right? That's what we got people like Yarnhub and Sabaton for, right? They go in and find those stories and bring them to light so we can understand about some of these heroic acts a lot of people gave their lives for, or in some cases came out of. But that is an amazing feat, man. It's these type of stories that keeps me coming back, man. Okay, wow, that was I was very surprised to see him still alive, right? Sometimes I look at these stories and I'm like, oh man, I hope he didn't pass away, or hope he's still alive. He is 70 years old, still around kicking. I don't know what he's doing now, but God, I would like to meet this guy. I just want to talk to him. I just want to and what's even better is that, sometimes when it comes to stories about these heroes and what they've done, we don't get to hear it like from the source, right? We can only hear it from people that surround it and some of the stuff that's documented. And you guys know how stories go. The more people that it goes through, the more the information changes. But with him still being alive, you know what I mean? Outside the kill count, because I imagine he was just trying to survive. So he probably doesn't even have a proper reconciliation of the, recollection of how many tanks he destroyed. But he can describe how he was feeling and stuff like that. So that makes the story even better. So this was amazing. That's the end of this video. If you enjoyed the content, leave a like and subscribe. Dave's out.